Hello and welcome to Social Currency, powered by Sunrise Banks, a podcast about the most innovative changemakers in finance, technology, and ESG, and how they, our guests, are dismantling barriers and reshaping their industries and maybe even ours too. I'm Tyler Seidel.
And I'm Eric Schur. Here, we speak to those driving positive change through social entrepreneurship. From cutting-edge technology to creative grassroots efforts, each episode seeks to reveal the stories behind the revolution that is propelling us toward a world of financial inclusivity. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Eric Schur, and today, I'm thrilled to have on the pod one of the most inspiring visionaries focused on creating opportunities for financial equity that I know, Mr. Wole Coaxum. Wole is the CEO and founder of Mobility Capital Finance, otherwise known as MoCaFi, a financial technology company working to provide resources and tools to those who are unbanked or underbanked. He's been at the helm since 2015 after spending years in various financial services and banking roles. Wole, welcome to Social Currency.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's a delight to be here.
Well, we're happy that you're here today. Thank you. First, I'd like to ask our listeners to understand what MoCaFi does and why. Can you talk to me about your personal journey, the observations you made, and the motivation that led you to found MoCaFi?
So I was very fortunate in my career to work in financial services for some very successful companies and firms. So I started my career at a small little company you may have heard of, which is Commercial Credit, which is in Baltimore, Maryland. And that company, over the time that I was there, evolved into Citigroup. And I was fortunate enough to be a part. I was a junior person that senior people like to have around, and I was able to see how they were able to build that company. And after that, had a chance to learn how to manage at scale. And I went into the insurance brokerage business and with a company called Willis, and was the chief operating officer of North America, and then the CEO of Willis Canada, and the banking. My banking roots were calling me, and I joined the many people who were part of the Citigroup story and joined JP Morgan and spent the next 9 years or so there learning and running treasury services, sales at a national level for large and upper middle market companies. Then I was the head of commercial card sales and relationship management globally. And then I was the number 2 guy in business banking nationally, focused on sales and had all the bankers and customers responsible reporting to me. And so I was very fortunate in my career to be in spaces where we were talking a lot about underserved communities, particularly when I was running sales and business banking, thinking about how do you ensure that business growth and business creation was happening, and how could Chase be a part of that? And then I had my George Floyd moment after the death of Michael Brown, where I was in my office sort of thinking about the images that I'd seen on television in Ferguson, where you had people who were, in pain in that community, and they had gone to the streets, and the protests that were there reminded me of that wonderful documentary about the civil rights movement called Eyes on the Prize. And I was looking at the images in 2014 and thinking about the images from the Eyes on the Prize film. And I said, it's 2014 and it looks a lot like 1968. And as a community, the Black community is struggling that time in the same way it was. And we had made a lot of progress. And I wanted to figure out how I could use my time and talents to address that issue, and decided to start MoCaFi. And I was fortunate enough to have mentors and friends who encouraged me to do so. They said, well, you've got this experience in financial services. Why don't you take your time and talent to come up with a new model? And that's how MoCaFi was founded. And with the idea of, while I was inspired by what happened in Ferguson, our goal is to help all communities who are underserved from a financial perspective or don't have access to political capital, social capital, or economic capital. And how can we use our platform to move people through a journey where they're able to start to build wealth and preserve it?
we've known each other for about 5 years now, and I am always energized when I get to speak to you and your staff because you guys tend to see the world through a slightly different lens. Can you talk to me about how the lens you look through to find these opportunities where you can create impact?
That's what's become clear for us over time is that it takes important players like Sunrise with your lens to move things forward, and it does take players like MoCaFi with our lens, and we're fortunate enough to be able to have Sunrise as an important partner in our product delivery, as you are our sponsor bank. But what we've been able to identify in our journey is there are communities that have resources, whether it's cities, counties, states, the federal government, that they need to get to folks who do not have bank accounts, who may be un or underbanked. And oftentimes, those resources don't get to individuals because the individuals don't have bank accounts. And as a result, the cities or the counties, the municipality is sub-optimizing, not just the fact that the money's not getting out, but it's sub-optimizing in terms of making the communities healthier and stronger. And the pandemic really brought this to life for us, or to light for us, I should say, in terms of whether it was PPP dollars or other stimulus checks. We're sometimes not getting the most vulnerable amongst us because they were in the form of check. And we were able to take the platform that we were building with you, and in conversation with mayors in particular, be able to sort of evolve our offering in such a way that says, hey, if you've got resources for vulnerable people who may not have bank accounts, we can provide services that can make that really efficient for you and give you better reporting, better controls, reduce your cost, because checks, as you know, are very expensive. And we've been talking about the demise of the check for a long time, and yet it still is very much a part of how money moves in this country. So if we can provide you with that, we can get the dollars and resources out to people more efficiently. And what's really special is those individuals who are receiving those resources are the actual individuals we'd like as customers. So we have another set of products and services that we can provide to those individuals that can bring them into the financial ecosystem through a demand deposit account in a low-cost, responsible way. And because we want that individual as a customer, that lens drives our innovation with the cities, and it becomes a very virtuous circle. And it's interesting, 80% of the bank branches that have closed in this country have been in low and moderate income communities.
Yeah.
And if that being the case, that's leaving a void in terms of banking services for people. And because our lens is focused on where that void exists, we're seeing what other people don't see. And it's no one's fault. I think it's really a result of business models need the ability to scale at low cost, and a branch-based banking system is hard to scale in communities that often have more month than money. But for us, that's a great opportunity. We want that customer, and it's through that lens that we're able to see opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. So, a point you made earlier, you talked about the communities you're serving not necessarily having the social and political capital. I think economic capital follows from those two, and maybe for purposes of this discussion. Do you find yourself in your conversations with mayors being that torchbearer, if you will, to present something to help communities gain that social and political capital? Do you find yourself speaking on behalf of those folks?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've created. In fact, we find ourselves in two situations. One, we are seen as an amplifier of the interest that elected officials have to support those communities, either an amplifier or a tool to support those communities. And at the same time, we're able to bring the voice of the communities we want to serve to the elected officials and provide insights for them as they think through the policy agenda that they want to pursue to support communities. And so we've created something called On Our Block. And the On Our Block is our community banking initiative, where it started, where we would go into community groups such as the Urban League, or we would work in public housing, whether it's New York or Birmingham or St. Louis, where we then bring resources such as financial coaches, maybe first-time home buying assistant programs. We'll partner with a local bank that is focused on that particular community and bring their resources, make those resources visible to individuals. We'd have a little food and a little music, and then we would use these as, or even partners such as Edward Jones, who are trying to provide investment services to people. And we would then create space for those individuals to begin to understand what resources are available in their communities, so they can buy homes, create investment accounts, or open up just basic banking accounts. And then we do that in partnership with the city, and some of the programs that they've put together. And so a recipient of an ERAP or a recipient of a universal basic income payment now has all these extra services that we can provide as we try to bring people into the financial mainstream.
So I'd like to get into a recent program MoCaFi is working on in New York City.
Yes.
On August 5th, 2022, the first bus carrying a group of migrants arrived at Port Authority Bus Terminal at Gate 14, and it came from Texas. About a year later, by September of 23, over 116,000 migrants had arrived in New York City, with over 60,000 remaining in the city shelter system. How did you become aware of the need for the city to provide assistance to these migrants?
So it started before the first bus of migrants came to New York City, as you rightly point out. It actually started when now Mayor Adams was Brooklyn Borough President Adams in 2021, I guess. And he was going on a listening tour around the country of different ideas that he would want to make a part of his administration. We had set up a program in Los Angeles called the Angelino Connect program, which was basically a disbursement framework and a demand deposit framework that the city launched to get resources to the 500,000 unbanked Angelinos, as well as give those unbanked Angelinos a banking option so they could get into the financial mainstream. So we shared that with Mayor Adams, and or at that time candidate Adams. And after he heard it, he said, "Oh, that's a good idea. I want to put that on my agenda." When he became Mayor Adams, we connected with his team, and the team said, "We want to bring in we've done the homework. You've gotten Gold Star from Los Angeles as a reference. We want to bring what you did in Los Angeles to New York." I said, "Great." So what you learn in working with government is it takes a little bit of time. So it took us into 2023 to get that program to a place where we're about to launch it. And we were working with the city. We were talking to different city agencies about this infrastructure, the disbursement capability being one of them. And the team that was responsible for the migrants said, "Hey, is there an opportunity for us to use this financial plumbing that MoCaFi is building for New York City to solve this problem?" And the specific problem that they wanted to solve was with the migrants that are coming in to seek asylum in New York City. They go through Roosevelt Hotel, which is just a couple blocks from where we are right now, in front of Grand Central Station, and it's like the 21st century version of Ellis Island. And so when people come through the processing to seek asylum, the city identifies individuals who are here by themselves, and then they also separate them, folks who have families. And the folks who have families are actually sent to hotels. New York City has about 40% of the mid-tier hotel space where these families stay for a 28-day period of time as they get ready for more permanent housing. And meals are being delivered to those households every 3 days, prepared meals. And that costs anywhere from $25 to $30, $35 a day per person. And the thought process was, hey, what if we're able to get out of the meal delivery business and actually give people a debit card that is restricted so they can only purchase food and baby supplies? That will save the city anywhere from $10 to $20 per person per day. It will also allow the individuals to select the food that's appropriate for them based on food that they like to eat, their culture, and other considerations. And at the same time, it allows for those dollars to be invested directly in local communities. And that was a win all the way around. And so we went through the process of building that infrastructure, going through the appropriate contracting process. The expectation is we're going to start it as a pilot with 500 families. So far, touch wood, it's getting off to a good start. I was just actually spent Wednesday there, and I'll be there over the weekend handing out cards. And we're seeing the ability to have real economic impact while saving the city money. And what's great is, while we've been focused on the asylum seekers, it's a program that can help all New Yorkers in terms of getting resources to the elderly, the homeless, foster youth, returning citizens. But this is the first use case. And the other thing that I'm really excited about, and this wouldn't be possible without our terrific partnership with Sunrise Banks, is we can take an individual who is receiving this benefit. And oh, by the way, we used WIC and SNAP as the standard to figure out how much money someone should get. And they get, on average, it's about, if it's a family of four, it's about $1,200, $1,400 over the 28-day period. We can then say, we could be your first demand deposit account. We have the ability to open up accounts for undocumented people. We do the KYC appropriately. And now we're taking a group of people. We have the opportunity to take a group of people who are coming to this country to build their lives and move themselves forward, and not then turn them over and say, well, we're going to go immediately into the unbanked population, which just exacerbates the problem and exacerbates the cost of being here. But we can now responsibly bring them into the digital economy and start to build a more robust and safer community. And I'm just very pleased and appreciative of our partnership that allows us to bring the newest arrivals in this country into the financial system in a responsible way.
Yeah, it's so inspiring. I know you and I were together last October, and you were giving this idea was really taking shape, I think, with you and your staff, and it was so interesting for us to be there and hear how you were thinking through conceptually how this was going to work and the issues that you were looking to resolve there. You touched upon the program in Los Angeles a little bit earlier. So you have Los Angeles, you have New York. These are, I'd say, slightly different use cases, but to the same ends. Where do you see a demand for similar programs like this to provide community and individual impact to lift those citizens in those communities?
Yeah, I think it's universal, quite frankly. It's just our ability to get the story out to as many people as possible and then go through the contracting process. But to specifically answer your question, if you are, regardless of your political view, an elected official who has responsibility for taking care of all your residents, you're thinking holistically in terms of how I might be able to do that. And there are a lot of federal resources that go to the states and then ultimately to the cities or to the counties that need to be allocated. And we're seeing time and time again the instance where figuring out how to get those resources to people responsibly and safely and efficiently is something that resonates. I'll give you a couple examples. So one is actually right there in Minnesota, where we're working with Olmsted County. And Olmsted County has a program where there are individuals in Olmsted County who are not in a position to take care of themselves financially. And so this county is receiving that individual's federal benefits. Maybe it's VA benefits, maybe it's Social Security. And historically, what they would do is they would give them an allowance on either via check or via gift card. And we've been able to change the game on that, where individuals now are receiving one of our accounts, and the city and the county, is able to provide resources to that individual, provide them a budget, give them spending cash, if you will, so they can live their lives responsibly. And it can be done on a very efficient basis, which again has made the county more efficient. The customer has a better experience, or the individual has a very better experience, and the community is stronger. I'll give you another example. We've built a product based on some of the things we've done with the asylum seekers, and we've got a proposal out in the city in Texas where they're like, hey, if somebody's ever impacted by a fire or a natural disaster, we would like the ability to get resources to that individual immediately and ensure that they have the money that they need to get shelter or to buy food or to get transportation. And so now we've got this ability to provide them with a stack of cards, and they can also do it virtually, and they can fund on a real-time basis to whomever they want the ability to get resources to people immediately. And so we think it's a universal problem in terms of the need to get resources to people who are in a variety of situations, and every elected official has an obligation to make sure their residents are looked after, and we think we can help do that.
That's great. Thank you. Before I let you go today, I have one final question for you, Wole. What fuels and inspires you outside of work?
It's interesting, and you were very gracious in your introduction of me in this conversation in terms of the leadership that I brought to this space and the work that we've done, and I don't feel that that's the case, right? I feel that it's a real privilege to spend my time and talents to be able to get up every morning and try to solve some of these problems. And so what inspires me is really the privilege to wake up every day and try to use the time and talents that I've got to solve these problems. And I'm very fortunate, as we all are. We have rich family histories, and my great-grandfather was part of the civil rights movement. He was a business person, but used his platform as a way to help make Charleston, West Virginia, a more equitable community during the 20th century. And he was a model that I was inspired by, and one that I try to emulate. And I just find that this platform that I am fortunate enough to be a part of at MoCaFi gives me the opportunity to build upon his legacy and others in my family, and where we're trying to figure out how to make the world a better place. Because if we're able to create a more equitable community, we all benefit. And that's the legacy that I hope to leave. I often talk about I'm running my leg of the relay race and trying to strengthen communities. And that's what inspires me, so I can leave the place a little bit better than I found it and pass the baton on to the next generation of people who can take this work forward.
A spirit of service. Wole, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to it. To seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
And that engaging dialogue was powered by Sunrise Banks, member FDIC.
Thanks for listening to the Social Currency Podcast by Sunrise Banks.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, click like and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast content.
We'll see you soon.